Hello and welcome back. Hello and welcome back. This is Valerie Monroe over there, and this is Bookwormy right here. And we're here to continue reading Journey to Nagwanis. Tell them what was going on last time. I will. Now, last time, Brogden and Finley had just gotten out of the tunnel, coming back from Nagwanis, where they had delivered the Amber Rose. And then the craziest thing happened. Finley was snatched. Finley was snatched by a house dweller and put in a sack. We don't know where he is now. So we're going to read on. Let's do it. Okay, chapter 15. Brogden continues on his own. Brogden couldn't believe that Finley had been snatched. Just moments before, Finley had been proclaiming his triumph. And now he was stuffed in a sack. Hot tears of frustration ran down Brogden's cheeks. Oh, they had been so close to home. They had tried so hard, and for what? If only Finley had exercised some semblance of caution and restraint. If only I had yanked Finley back inside and scolded him for the folly of being so loud. If only. Ifs and onlys raced around Brogden's mind until he thought his brain would explode with guilt. Then he realized something. Whomever had caught Finley might also be interested in him as well. True, he'd never seen a foot on display in someone's yard like he'd seen gnomes, but that did not mean that someone wouldn't want him for some other reason. If he remained where he was, he could be in danger. He must act. The only was slowing him down. Only where should he go? Brogden had spent enough time with Finley to know that even though the house dweller boy had captured him, probably with the intention of standing him up in his yard, his front yard next to a plastic flamingo, Finley still had the brains to devise an escape plan and the grit to carry it out. So he's not too worried about Finley. It was more important, Brogden decided, to get word to Finley's wife that her husband was alive and kicking. He would not mention Finley's current predicament. No need to worry her any further. But he'd reassure her that the Amber Rose had been delivered and they could return to their community with their heads held high. Then he would tell her it was just a matter of time before Finley joined her. Although if she asked where he was, well, Brogden wasn't sure just how to answer that yet. With the decision made, Brogden began homeward. It was strange to be on his own again with nothing but his thoughts to occupy his mind. He slid down the boulders bit by bit, and by the time he reached the raft on the beach, the palms of his hands were red and raw. He stooped over and dipped them into the lake's cool water to relieve the stinging pain. Maneuvering the raft by himself was not something he felt comfortable doing, even though everything around him was awash with sunset and he could see quite well. His only other option was to follow the shoreline on foot, back to where the swale emptied into the lake, and then climb uphill. Hiking would take longer, but he liked that idea better than taking the chance of flipping into the icy cold lake. So, with one backward glance at the raft, he set off along the shore, leaving a trail of tiny footprints behind him. He figured that if he walked steadily, with only short breaks every hour or so, he would arrive home by the following evening. He soon felt a burst of energy, a second wind fueled by the still evening air and the realization that he was alone. Because nighttime animals might mistake him for a meal, he became quite wary, swiveling his head from side to side as he walked. He heard owl hoots and swishes of animals as they scurried through the clumps of reeds, but thankfully he didn't encounter anyone truly dangerous. He kept to the edge of the lake as much as possible. Now and then he scrambled over a wooden dock. Although he longed to pause and listen to the sound of the waves lapping against the tethered boats, he kept moving. He passed through tall grasses where some toads were croaking away unseen, and several small sandy beaches. And eventually the moon rose and illuminated his path. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Brogden concentrated on his steps and counted up to 100 with each one. And then he began again, over and over. He wondered how many steps it would take to reach Finley's wife and son in the eagle's nest. If only he were taller than a foot. If he was as tall as a house dweller, as tall as, say, his friend John, then his strides would be longer and the trip would be shorter. However, he mused as he began counting from 0 again, if I was taller, I would never have been able to deliver the amber rose with Finley. He also would never have fit into the tunnel or fit onto their tiny raft. And he would never be able to climb inside the eagle's nest. Why, he laughed aloud. Being a foot was just about the best kind of being you could be. He was so entranced with the wonderment of his existence that he failed to notice a large, lumpy boulder in his path. And he ran smack into it, hard enough to send him flying backward. He landed on his bum with a thump and laughed at how silly it was to be caught up in his thoughts that way. It felt so good to sit too, but only for a moment, he reminded himself. Any more than that, he would lose precious time. Any more than that would add moments to the time that Finley's wife and son were stuck in the nest, instead of with their family and friends as they should be. It was up to him to get word to them. But Brogden's eyelids began to grow heavy. As much as he prodded himself to get up, he found himself warming to the idea of lying down. A tiny nap was all he wanted, and then he would rise and be on his way. The moment his head made contact with the soft earth, he was fast asleep. Within minutes, he was snoring heavily and dreaming of that glorious moment when he would triumphantly proclaim that, yes, Finley was alive. And that's where we'll stop for today. So he fell asleep. He did. He fell asleep. I think he's a little tired from all this excitement, but he's got to rest because he's got a long journey back, climb. He's got to climb the willow tree, go see Finley's wife and tell her everything's okay. Okay, so that makes sense. Are you going to come back tomorrow? I certainly hope you all come back tomorrow and read with us some more. Thanks for tuning in today. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.